All right, so we're starting a new chapter today. We're going to go a little more in depth into some triangles. We're going to start off with Pythagorean theorem. So this is something you're probably somewhat familiar with. When three sides of a right triangle are known, the third side can be found using Pythagorean theorem. The exact definition of the Pythagorean is the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the legs. So let's look at this triangle right here. The hypotenuse, guys, is always directly across from the 90-degree angle. So we have the hypotenuse. And the other two sides that are touching the 90-degree angle are the legs. And basically, we call the legs A and B and the hypotenuse C. So the Pythagorean theorem is A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So we're going to look at a couple of these, and I think probably what y'all have done so far is they've given you A and B and you find C, but we will actually be given C sometimes and have to find A or B. So it may be a little different than what you've seen before. So what we've got to start off with is a right triangle. It looks like the legs are 3 and 7, so I'm going to label those A and B, and then X is going to be our C value. So I take 3 and square it. I take 7 and square it, and that equals our hypotenuse squared. So 3 squared is 9, 7 squared is 49, and that equals X squared. And 9 plus 49 will be 58. So 58 equals X squared. And then we have to undo the square, which is the square root. So that's the opposite. And we get X is equal to the square root of 58. I'm not going to kill you if you don't simplify, and this one can't be simplified anyway. If you want to give it to me in a decimal, that would be about 7.6. And if I tried to break down 58, it'd be 2 and 29. Since 29 is prime, there'd be no pairs anyway. Let's look at the next one. Now, this is a little bit different. We have our hypotenuse, so I know what C is, and we have one of the legs. I'm going to call it A. This time, we're going to be looking for B. So I'm going to have X squared, or A, we can put it wherever we want, sorry. X squared plus 6 squared equals, and guys, put this in parentheses, 6 square roots of 2 squared. And that may be a little bit new. So X squared plus 36 equals, and guys, when you square something, you square both pieces. So really 6 squared is 36, and anything that's a square root squared just takes away the square root sign. So it's really 36 times 2, which is 72. So be really careful when you do that one. So then I subtract 36 from both sides, and I get X squared equals 36. If I take the square root of both sides, I get X equals 6. And just for clarification, remember, squaring something is multiplying it by itself. So that's kind of where this comes from. 6 times 6 is 36. The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. All right, let's go to the next page. This is a little bit different. We have like a square or a rectangle, some sort of quadrilateral with a triangle on its edge, and it wants us to find the hypotenuse, but we have to do a little bit of legwork to get there. It didn't give us this side here. Whoops, I don't know what's going on. Or this side. Really, we have to do a little work to get it. Well, this side over here is across from 8. And so I'm going to put the 8 right here because they're the same length. Now, the other side is cut off, but I know that this piece right here would be 5. So if it's all 11 total, the other piece would have to be 6. And now we've got our right triangle. So I have 8 squared plus 6 squared equals X squared. That's 64 plus 36 equals X squared. And the sum of 64 and 36 is 100. That's a nice one. We take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 100 gives us that X equals 10. So a little bit different, but use your brain. You should be able to get that. Now, here's an interesting one. I like it a lot. They didn't give us any of the side lengths of this square, but they did give us the hypotenuse. So since it's a square, both sides are just X, so we can still solve this one. So if it was A squared, it'd actually be X squared plus another X squared, because A and B are the same, equals 5 square roots of 2 squared. Well, I can add X squared and X squared together to get 2X squared, and that equals whatever this is going to be. So let's work this out. 5 squared would be 25. The square root of 2 squared would be 2, so that gives us 50. Now, we can't take the square root yet. We have to get rid of the 2 first. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2. It gives me x squared equals 25, which makes it much nicer anyway. When I take the square root of both sides, I get x equals 5. All right. Let's go to the next one. It says the length of a diagonal of a rectangle with length 8 and width 4. So we need to draw a rectangle first. Got to have a picture. And then I'm going to fill in what I know. I need to find the length of the diagonal. So I'm going to put an x there, which will be the hypotenuse of the triangles that are formed from that rectangle. I know that the length is 8, the width is 4, and now it basically turns into the same problem that I've been doing. So I take 4 squared plus 8 squared, and that's going to equal x squared. 4 squared is 16, 8 squared is 64, and that equals x squared. 16 plus 64 gives me 80 equals x squared. And I'm going to take the square root, and under the x equals the square root of 80. Now I'm going to break this one down. Of course, at the moment, I'm not going to take off if you do that, but the time is coming where I'm going to need you to. I'm going to put 80 up here and start breaking it down into primes. I can take a 2 out of 80, it leaves me with 40. I can take a 2 out of 40, it leaves me with 20. A 2 out of 20 leaves me with 10. And a 2 out of 10 leaves me with 5. Now, since it's squares, we're looking for pairs. I have 2 pairs of 2's. So I take out the pairs of 2's. I have 1 for this one times 1 for that one, but the 5 is left inside because it doesn't have a date. 2 times 2 gives me 4 square roots of 5. So either of those answers is acceptable, but you might try to start doing these because it'll be easier on you later. Let's go to the next page and finish this up. It says the length of a diagonal of a square. So I'm going to sketch a square real quick. What a perfect square that is. It says find the length of the diagonal. So I'm going to put my x. It says the perimeter is 24, but this is a square, so all the sides are congruent. So I can divide that by 4 to get each side length, so each side is actually 6. So I can put a 6 here. I don't know what happened. A 6 here and a 6 there. So I have 6 squared plus 6 squared equals x squared. That's 36 plus 36 equals x squared, which is 72 equals x squared. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides, and I get x equals the square root of 72. So I'm going to break this one down for you as well. Since it's even, 2 is the easiest number to take out. That'd be 2 and 36. I can take a 2 out of 36, and I get 18. A 2 out of 18 gives me 9, and then I can't take a 2 out, but 9 is 3 times 3. So again, I'm going to look for pairs. I've got a pair of 2's, so I'm going to bring out a 2. And I've got a pair of 3's, so I'm going to bring out a 3. But this 2 right here does not have a partner, so it's stuck inside. So you actually get 6 square roots of 2. And let's do this last one. This looks pretty tough, but it's actually pretty easy. It says find the value of x in the isosceles trapezoid shown below. So it's sort of like that square with the triangle on the side that we did earlier. I know some pieces of this, I just don't know it all. So I can find these pieces right here. I'm just going to label these B. But I also need to know this center piece here, and that's really the easy part. If this length is 10, then this length is also 10. But that's not x. We need to find b so we can fill it all in. So I do know that I have an a value here and the hypotenuse c. So I'm going to say 8 squared plus b squared equals 10 squared. That's 64 plus b squared equals 100. And I subtract 64 from both sides and I get b squared equals 36. Then I can take the square root of both sides, and the square root of 36 is just 6. So I know I have a 6 here and a 6 there. Now, I've had a lot of people mess this up. 6 isn't the answer. 10 isn't the answer. It's 6 plus 10 plus 6, because it's all the pieces. That x goes from here to here. And when I add those up, you should get 22 for your answer. So Pythagorean theorem's not that bad, guys, but if you don't practice it, it can get more difficult in the future. So if you have any questions, let me know tomorrow, and good luck.